A night of violence, a night of fright. Santa Claus is coming. Get out of his sight.
Police and coroners located the last of the bodies this morning. A particularly difficult task after the intense fire that reduced the home to rubble. Police say Bruce Pardo dressed up in a Santa suit and went to the home of his ex-wife's parents, James and Alicia Ortega, where they were having their annual family Christmas.
Bruce was born in 1963 and grew up in the golden state of California, where he would work hard to build up his career as an electrical engineer. At some point in his adult years, he met a woman that he fell in love with and married. The couple soon had a child that they cared for. Already this early on, Bruce had a problem with the darker sides of himself. He never showed his darkness to the people around him, but it was there, just simmering beneath the surface. He also had an ego that he couldn't allow to be bruised or humiliated. But again, he kept his true feelings within him, and inside they were relatively safe for now. But there was a couple of things right there in Bruce Pardo's future. A couple of things that would push Bruce over the edge. One day Bruce was watching his young son by the pool. Whether the pool was in the backyard or a public pool is unknown, but somehow the young kid slipped out of Bruce's grip and fell into the pool, where he injured himself so severely that he would never be able to walk. Bruce was crushed. He knew he was responsible. Even though it may have been an accident, Bruce Pardo's ego turned in on itself. The only way he knew to respond was to divorce his wife and leave his now crippled son and his wife alone. His inner guilt couldn't bear to look at them. He had to start again, but this was only strike number 1, and the fuse was lit. Now all he needed was one more strike. Bruce moved on with his life and eventually met another woman, Sylvia Ortega. The two married in 2006, and Sylvia Ortega became Sylvia Ortega Pardo. But things wouldn't stay lovely-dovey for too long. Bruce still had the fuse lit within him and hadn't even told his newlywed wife of his previous marriage. Sylvia also had 3 children, but Bruce didn't want to take care of any of them financially. He refused to open a joint bank account with Sylvia and wanted her to handle all of her own finances. This caused a rift between the two, and only a year and a half after the two had married, Sylvia went to the judge and requested a divorce from Bruce. Like in so many American divorce settlements, the wife got a nice chunk of money out of Bruce. He was to pay her approximately $1,800 a month, and on top of that he was going to pay her $10,000 in the divorce settlement. Bruce would cook. She lived with her parents and spent money lavishly and went to trips in Las Vegas. Bruce struggled to pay Sylvia the money he had to. Whether this was because he couldn't afford it, or if it was his ego, is unknown, but this would be the second strike, the trigger. Bruce would then be caught billing false hours and lost his job. He was about ready to explode. He was the nicest guy you could imagine, always a pleasure to talk to, always a big smile. Those were the words of the head usher at the church Bruce Pardo attended. But the smile was gone. That darkness that had been growing inside of him now peered its ugly fucking head. He started the plans early. He knew what he had to do. His ego wasn't going to be messed with anymore. He bought several semi-automatic guns, made a homemade flamethrower, and started saving up money. Christmas, he thought. On Christmas Eve, I'm going to kill them all. December 24th, 2008, Covina, California. Covina is a sleepy suburb in California, and on this eve, Christmas Eve, Sylvia Ortega was celebrating Christmas with her relatives and loved ones. The house was packed and the Christmas spirit was present in every corner of the house. Here in Sweden, Santa comes on Christmas Eve and delivers presents to the kids and everyone else by the Christmas tree. But in America, Santa comes through the chimney at night and drops off the presents for the kids in the morning on Christmas Day. That's why the 8-year-old little girl must have been somewhat confused when she opened the door and saw Santa Claus. But he didn't look very jolly. His eyes were dead. He held something in his hand. It was a package. But then he pulled out something in his other hand. It was a gun. Santa Claus raised his gun to the 8-year-old girl and shot her right in the face. Mayhem ensued. Bruce Pardo had dressed up as Santa Claus and had brought the flamethrower he built in the package, and he also had a few handguns with him. After he shot the little girl in the face, he went on a crazy spree. He just shot anyone he could. He didn't care who they were. But he had a main target, his ex-wife and her immediate family. When he found it and some of her relatives, he stood over them and executed them. Just imagine that for a second. You're celebrating Christmas with your family and everyone is having a good time, when all of a sudden a crazy man dressed up as Santa Claus gets into the house and just starts shooting people wildly. Then he goes up to the person sitting next to you, puts his gun against their forehead and pulls the trigger, shoots them, dead. Then he looks at you and raises his gun. Fucking horrifying. All in all, Bruce Pardo had managed to kill 9 people inside the house, and 3 people have been wounded in the attack. The 8-year-old little girl would luckily enough survive the event, but who knows what mental issues she suffered as a result of seeing a man who is supposed to bring joy and love on Christmas committing such an act. There was also a 16-year-old girl at the party who was shot in the back but survived. And then there was a 20-year-old woman who broke her ankle when jumping out of a second-floor window to escape the mayhem. Bruce Pardo had been using cocaine as Santa's little helper to commit the massacre, and he now was going to initiate the second part of it. He was going to burn the house down with his flamethrower. But something went wrong. The house caught fire successfully, but the flamethrower made pieces of Bruce Pardo's Santa suit melt into his flesh, and it also gave him some severe burn injuries. But he took his normal clothes as well as he could, and got into his car and drove several miles to his brother's home. He had initially bought a plane ticket and planned to escape, but I don't think the massacre went as well as he figured it would go in his head. There had been several witnesses that had escaped and he was in agony from the injuries he had. He went to his brother's house, but his brother wasn't home. He called his brother and then sat down in his brother's couch and shot himself in the head. Sometime later, the brother came home and found Bruce Pardo sitting dead in his couch. Pieces of Bruce's Santa Claus suit melted into his skin, and when police looked through his car, they found that it was booby-trapped. Luckily though, they managed to set the detonations off before they could do any real harm. Bruce hadn't just killed 9 people and then himself. He had killed Christmas for an entire neighborhood.
What's your address? Ma'am, I understand. I need to know your address.
When he shot, I heard the shots and they were like poppers and I wasn't sure what it was, so everyone started panicking and running, so we all dove under the dining room. Some of us dove and some of us left. I don't know. My daughter has been shot. She was shot in the face on the side and she's bleeding.
I know, I let the officers know. The officers are making sure it's safe for the paramedics.
Police ascended on the house rather fast after getting that 911 call. The house was ablaze and the fire was soaring 50 feet into the air. It took firefighters over an hour to put the fire out. Neighbors and onlookers gathered around the burned down house, shocked. The victims had to be identified by their dental records, and the 9 people that died on Christmas Eve 2008 were Sylvia Ortega, Bruce Pardo's ex-wife. She died at 43 years old. Alicia Ortega, Sylvia's mother. She died at 70 years old. Joseph Ortega, Sylvia's father. He died at 80 years old. Charles Ortega, Sylvia's brother, he died at 49 years old. Sherry Ortega, the wife of Charles Ortega, she died at 45 years old. James Ortega, Sylvia's other brother, he died at 51 years old. Teresa Ortega, the wife of James Ortega, she died at 52 years old. Alicia Ortiz, Sylvia's sister, she died at 46 years old. Michael Ortiz, the son of Alicia Ortiz, he died at 17 years old. The following morning was December 25th. Christmas Day was there, but there was no one in the neighborhood in the mood for presents and joy. The spirit of Christmas had been executed for so many people that day. Today, it has been 10 years since the massacre took place. The 8-year-old girl is now an adult, and time moves on, but Christmas just won't be the same ever again. So remember that no matter how bad you're feeling this Christmas, it can always be worse. All it takes is an unstable person to prove that even Christmas can be a day of horror. So, from me to all of you, I wish you all a Merry fucking Christmas, and please don't kill anyone.